Hello everyone. Now, I had a comment left on one of my videos, my YouTube clips. It was about the Fukien Tea Tree. And the question was, how do I improve the taper of my tea tree? Oh, that's a great question. So I thought I'd do a little video clip. All right, I did reply in the comment, but you can't be actually seeing it being done. And I thought it would help a lot of other people as well. The tea tree grows very top heavy. It produces quite thick, chunky branches. It is actually a shrub, grows to about 4 meters tall in the wild or natural habitat. So it tends to grow sort of like this big bushy thing like this. As a bonsai, not ideal in the fact that the branches, if I can show you here, okay, they tend to get, can you see that? Quite chunky. They're not small and twiggy like the Chinese Elm, okay? So it can get very top heavy very quickly. So here's what we need to do. We need to slow the growth down at the top and let it grow more at the bottom. It has already lost a couple of branches lower down, here and here. And the reason for that is that it just puts all its leaves up here. And if we, the growers, don't sort of slow that down, then the bottom branches will die off. We'll grow up here and basically think, I don't need those leaves, I don't need those branches down there. So we will shed them. And probably most trees in the wild do that. The aim for the tree is to get their leaves out into the sunlight. And if they're starting to get a bit shady and they're not performing very well, then the tree just, well, lets them go. So how do we make the trunk thicker? How do we sort of slow this down? Basically, it's just by pruning. And all I'm going to do is thin out the top here a little bit. Okay, I'm going to just prune it back a little bit harder than I would down here. The tree is all nice and green and it's all fairly healthy, so it all looks good. So I'm not too worried about that. So have a look around. Got quite a nice little shape, a nice little twist to this. But as you can see, the taper's not brilliant. It hasn't got any branches down here. It's already lost those, as I explained. So going around, so up here, if I move that closer, you can see, all right? Some thick chunky branches up here. So all I'm going to do is I'm going to just do a little prune to start with and turn it round so you can see what I'm doing. It's much easier if you can see, even if I can't. And I'm going to prune the obvious ones first. The ones that really are, you can see it's quite big up here. It's sort of growing out. So I'm just going to prune it back a little bit and then we'll see where we are. And so it's quite chunky up here, not a lot of difference up there. So I'm not being too accurate at this stage because I can go back in and clean up any lumps and bumps and stumps in a minute. So all we're going to do is just take off some of this and then we can see a little bit more about what is actually going on in there. Not worrying about the shape, because the shape will regrow. And I will warn you at this stage that while you're doing this, your tree will look a little bit thin on the top, but don't worry about that because it will bud back. And depending on the growing season, so whether it's spring, summer, winter, autumn, whatever, but it'll bounce back fairly quickly, especially in the summer. It doesn't matter too much when we do this, but it will regrow slower in the winter time, but that's your decision. Right, so I'm quite happy with the shape of the trunk. It would have been nice to have this branch back, but what I'm hoping now by doing this, it'll force some back budding and we should get some new shoots coming back through here so I can regrow that branch. Not a problem. Now, how's the taper going? So it's starting to look smaller at the top, but it's not there yet. So I'm going to have to be a little bit more drastic. Coming up here, I'm just going to follow the trunk line, coming up there. And I like the way it sort of comes up this way. You can see this comes out here, that one goes there. So I want to continue the trunk up that way, but I don't need this big heavy branch out here. It's probably time for some branch cutters. Okay, so I've got some small side branch cutters here. Scissors might have done it. It's not that hard. The wood on this tree is not that hard. So if you don't have these scissors, probably. And what I'm going to do is going to come in here and I'm going to take that one off. And then I've got this one up here and this one up here. I like this angle going off that way. And I'm not too keen on this big chunky chap here. So I'm going to take that one back. So we're doing kind of several things here in one go. We are improving the taper because we're slowing the growth down here, getting the growth back down, slowing the growth down at the top here, and we want to get the growth back down the bottom here. And if we can get it growing here, that will actually pull out the trunk as well, improving the taper. So that's one thing. We're also going to improve the branch structure down below, but we're also adding to the shape of the trunk line coming up. Instead of being this sort of big, 2 or 3 big branches at the top, we've now got one. So we're simplifying the design. And then I'm going to take this one off here. Bring me back to a bit of an apex up here to get this sort of triangular shape like that, okay? So if we follow the trunk line now, we sort of do this zigzag and we end up here. So that means it's very simple. So we've simplified the design. And then what it does is highlights other areas of the tree that we can also do a little bit of thinning out and a bit of changing. So here we've got a branch that's just growing up, but really I'd like him to be out a bit more like a sort of a pad. So we'll take that one off. In here, all right, I've got the main branch here, this big branch there. This little one here has decided to shoot out in the corner. That's a bit of clutter. A little bud here that will wake up in a minute, but he's on the underside of the branch, so I'm going to take that one out. What else have we got going on? Now this is quite drastic, so what I suggest is that if you're working on your tree at home, do a little bit at a time. Unless you're really certain and you know what you're doing, take it slowly. It really doesn't matter. Trim off the top bit, leave it, see what happens, okay? Let it regrow. It's okay for me. I've done thousands of these, so it's really not a problem. But take it slowly. There's no rush. Having a look around now. Now the tree's kind of, in one way, it's lost all its leaves up there, so you know it doesn't look quite so nice. But when we come around, we're coming up here now. Can you see that triangle? So when we've got some green, if I can sort of pretend that that was the growth on there, this branch here, maybe that sort of helps you visualize it a bit. Any other branches that just need a little bit of a trim while we're here doing it, tidying up. I also like to try and increase and improve the taper on the branches as well, because they are chunky. They don't just seem to gradually taper down. They tend to be quite sort of big, like a finger, and then another bit comes out, and another bit chunky. So I'm going to do a little bit of pruning on some of these branches here, and what that does is send out new shoot. That shoot will be smaller than the one it's growing from the branch. So I'm looking for anything which is not going to add to the overall shape and will help a bit of bud back down there. So there we go. That's a little bit of tidying up. There's a few old stumps here which have been pruned over the years, so we just go in and prune those back. Now I would expect it is excuse me, it is October here in the UK now. I should think it'll probably be 2 or 3 months before we start to see any serious growth on here. New buds will come through. And we'll just water him and feed him the same. So water him regularly and feed him once a week, just a little bit, keep him topped up. So yeah, I think probably a few weeks we'll start to get some growth coming back. But I won't let it grow too heavy at the top here. So I'll let a new shoot come through, a new shoot up here, and let it do its thing. And I'll prune it down a little bit, but I will let it grow again. But down here, I will let the new shoots grow out a little bit. Okay, now it will take at least 1, 2, 3 years before this actually starts to really come out. To help that, you could actually take it out of the smaller pot and put it into a bigger pot. And that's called growing them on. So quite often what we do is we take smaller ones, we pot them on, let the roots really sort of spread out, let the roots run a little bit, and that will stretch out, if you like, and help thicken up the trunk. So it depends what stage you're at and how much work you actually want to do with your bonsai. But this will help, okay? This will start to give you some shape and a little bit of taper back without doing anything too drastic. So I hope that helps. Helps understand how to just keep the tea tree under control a little bit, how to add to the taper, how to stop losing lower branches and things like that. It's a fantastic tree, a really pretty tree, makes a great bonsai. So just keep sort of an eye on those big heavy branches on there. And I hope this helps, and if it does, brilliant.